When you step out in courageous faith to obey the Lord, even in things that are challenging, God calls you friend. God calls you friend. Starting at verse 21 of our passage in James, was not Abraham our father justified by works when he offered up his son Isaac on the altar? You see that faith was along with his works, and faith was completed by his works. And the scripture was fulfilled that says, Abraham believed God, and it was counted to him as righteousness, and he was called a friend of God. Most of you know Abraham's story, but God told him to sacrifice, like as in kill, dead, his son. I mean, wow. I mean, I don't think I could trust God on that. I mean, like, that's humongous. But talk about faith. Talk about trust. He was ready to plunge a knife through his son because he just trusted that God knew what he was doing, and God stopped him, and his son was spared, and God provided a different sacrifice. But it's like, now that's some trust. That's some obedience, right? Abraham had a decision to make. And by the way, trusting God is not a feeling. It is not a feeling. It's a decision. I choose to trust God. Abraham had to decide whether he was going to go in whole hog to trust God or not, right? And he chose well. And because he chose well and decided to step out in faith and just totally trust God, God called him friend. I want to be friended by God, don't you? Yeah. When you become friends with someone, they share their heart with you. They talk to you. They encourage you. They lavish you with little gifts. I want to be God's friend, don't you? Yeah. Number 6. God cancels out our old sinful identity and gives us a new identity as holy when we choose to trust him and step out in blind faith to honor him and serve him. Blind faith. Verses 24 through 26, you see that a person is justified by works and not by faith alone. And in the same way, was not also Rahab the prostitute justified by works when she received the messengers and sent them out by another way? For as the body apart from the spirit is dead, so also faith apart from works is dead. Now that word justified might be kind of tricky. You might be thinking, what does that mean? In the biblical context, it means to remove the penalty of sin and make holy. So in other words, God cancels out our old sinful messed up self and he gives us a new identity. And in this verse, it's clear that we become justified, receive this new identity as holy, as we step out in faith and obey him, just like Rahab did. Rahab's story, just real quickly, she was a prostitute, not the best profession, but she chose to believe that the Lord was who he said he was. And so when the king's army came, she chose to hide 2 of the Jewish people, God's people, and protect them. And that was at risk of her own life, but she just chose. I believe, I trust that God is who he says he is, so I'm going to be on his team. I'm going to be on his side. She stepped out courageously. So my question for you is, what is God asking you to do to honor him and serve him? What will you say if you sense God nudging you to honor him or serve him in a specific way tomorrow or the next day? Will you step out and trust him? I choose to trust him because he has shown himself as faithful to me.